Hi everyone and welcome to lesson 6. Today's lesson is fairly technical since we are covering both MLA citation as well as MLA formatting. So get ready to take a lot of notes and pay attention to detail. So I suppose today's lesson falls more under the writing category. It's not really analysis or research, and it's more talking about formatting your writing. It's about how to cite your research. So I guess partially under research and partially under writing. Let's go ahead and start with a definition of plagiarism. Plagiarism is something that's really bad for a student or for anyone, and that is where you take someone else's work, you borrow someone else's work without giving them proper credit. So if you find a really great quote in an article and you copy that quote, put it into your essay, and then move on without telling others that you didn't really write that information, that you didn't really write that sentence, that's stealing their work, that's called plagiarism. So we don't want to plagiarize. We can use other people's work. We can't copy their entire essay and call it our essay, of course, but we can borrow little sentences here and there as long as we give them proper credit. So today we're mainly going to be talking about how to do that and how to cite sentences, how to cite so that we can give those authors proper credit. So today we're going to be talking about two things. First of all, in-text citation, and then general formatting, and then talking about a works cited page. Now, hopefully a lot of this is review since it's going to be quite detailed. I normally wouldn't present this much information in one lesson, so hopefully this is mainly a review. Remember that an in-text citation, as its name sounds, in text, is a little tiny citation within the actual text of the essay. And the main purpose of this citation, of this little in-text citation, is to point you to the works cited page. So you have your essay, and at the very end of your essay, on the page immediately following your essay, you have a works cited page where you list all of the works that you cited, all of the works that you quoted from. And this little in-text citation allows you to look more information about that resource on that works cited page. So I like to think of in-text citations as sort of a bookmark that points you to a larger citation at the end of the essay. So let's go and talk about in-text citation first, since it's a little bit easier than the full citations. So first of all, let's go ahead and start with just a basic in-text citation. So let's say that this is your quote. This is the amazing quote. So you found this amazing quote off of a website and you want to put it in your essay. Well, you can do that by putting quotation marks around it, beginning and ending with quotation marks to show that those are not your words, you are quoting someone. And then you use a parentheses, just so you can see opening and closing parentheses. And then here you'll type the author's last name, and you'll follow that by a space and a number. So if it came from page 31, you'll type 31, close the parentheses, and then end with a period. Notice that the period, the ending punctuation, comes after the parentheses, after the in-text citation. It doesn't come over here like you might think. It gets pushed way over here. So this is a basic in-text citation. Basically, you have quotes around your quote, or you have quotation marks around your quote, and then you have inside these parentheses a last name and a page number. So that's not too difficult. Let's go ahead and review. The last name goes in the parentheses. You don't need the full name, just the author's last name. Then you put the page number also in the parentheses, and notice that the period comes at the very end. So here's an example of an actual, well, it's kind of made up, but how this might look like. Let's say that this is your quote. Trees are green. Notice how I put quotation marks around that quote. And then we have our in-text citation. We have parentheses with a last name and a page number. So I pretended that I was citing or quoting from myself. So here's Tanaka and 72 from page 72. So that's not too difficult. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of exceptions and variations, so we have to cover those as well. So let's say that in the sentence, in your essay, you already named your author. So here's the sample. As Amy Tanaka wrote, comma, trees are green. So we already identified who said these words. So do we have to put Tanaka again in the in-text citation? Well, since in that sentence we already identified our author, we can just put the page number. We don't have to identify the author. So that's not too difficult, but that is a variation you'll want to keep in mind. Now let's say that there were two authors. Let's say that this was a book written by two people, Amy Tanaka and George Washington. So if that was the case, you'll just type both of the last names in the in-text citation, separated by the word and. Tanaka and Washington on page 72. Not too difficult. Let's say that there were three authors. If that's the case, you just need to add commas and the word and. Tanaka, comma, Washington, comma, and Adams from page 72. So if there are more than one author, that's really not too hard. You just have to remember to put their last names there. Now let's say that there were 4 or more authors. Maybe 16 people worked together to write this book. Do you have to put 16 last names in this in-text citation? No. If it's more than 4, if it's 4 or more, all you do is type the first author's last name or the most important author's last name, and then you write this funny little phrase that says et al. Et space al period. And that stands for a Latin phrase, et alia, which means and others. So Tanaka and others. And that just lets everyone know that there are a lot of other people, but you're not going to type them all up because they'll look kind of silly in your essay. So I hope this makes sense. Let's go ahead and review really quickly. If you already identify your author in the sentence, then you don't have to repeat that in the index citation. If there are 2 authors, just use the word and. If there are 3 authors, use comma and the word and. If there are 4 or more authors, type the first author's last name and then et al. So 4 variations to keep in mind. And unfortunately, there are 4 more. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's say that there was not an author. What should you type in the in-text citation if there was no author? Well, let's say that this came from a book, and the book was called Facts About Trees. And so we don't have the author's last name. The next best thing is just to put the title of the book. So you can go ahead and put the title of the book in the in-text citation in place of the author's name. Now it's kind of hard to tell with this font, but that title will need to be italicized. So hopefully you can see how Facts About Trees is a little bit italicized. So italicize the author, or excuse me, italicize the title of the book, and you can still have the page number. So no author, use the title of the book. Now let's say that this wasn't a book. Let's say that this was just an article. What should you do then? Well, all you do is you type up the title of the article. Now, if the article's title is extremely long, you can go ahead and abbreviate that. So let's say that the title of the article was Facts About Trees in Western Washington in the Spring. Well, that would be a very long title, so we can go ahead and shorten that a little bit so that it fits nicely into the in-text citation. So if there's not an author, you can either use the name of the book and italicize it, or you can abbreviate, shorten the title of the article, put it in quotation marks, and use that in place of the author's last name. Now let's say that you don't have the author's last name and you don't have page numbers. This is actually very common. This is probably what you'll have to do a lot for your in-text citation, because if you cite a web page, they often don't have an author and they often don't have a page number. Web pages don't really have page numbers. So in that case, what you would do is use just an abbreviated title of the article. So you can see here I have just the abbreviated title of the article in quotation marks. Now I suppose, well actually never mind, books usually have page numbers, so I don't think that would apply. So this is very common for web pages when you don't have an author and you don't have page numbers. Just take the title of the article, shorten it if necessary, put quotation marks around it, and stick it inside your parentheses. Alright, one last variation. If you are quoting from the Bible, this is what you should do. You should type up the version, so English Standard Version, or whatever type of version you use, type a comma, and then type in the reference, the book, and then the chapter, period, and the verse, and then close the parentheses. So I hope that these 8 variations make sense to you. There are a lot of variations, but I think it kind of makes sense how those variations work, so hopefully it's not too complicated. Remember, I think the way the variation you'll use the most is this one right here, where there is no author and no page number. So maybe you'll even want to pause the video and copy that down. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and move on. We still haven't talked about the Works Cited page, but let's go and take a little break from all the citation stuff and just talk about general formatting. So when you are formatting, when you are setting up your page, your Word document, you can't just choose any size paper you want and any size margins. There are specified guidelines here. So use letter-sized paper, which is just the regular 8.5 by 11 size paper. I'm actually going to pull up a Word document. So if you go to Page Layout, Size, you'll see that you can select a letter 8.5 by 11. And you'll obviously want to choose paper that's standing up versus in the landscape mode. You don't want to type like this. You want your page to be standing up like this. Okay, so your page is letter sized. Your margins should be 1 inch, which means the little white space all around the edge of the paper should be 1 inch. So to do that, go to Page Layout, Margins, and set it to 1 inch, which is the normal setting. So far, not too hard. The spacing should be double spaced, so there should be a blank space between each line of text. So to do that, go to Home, go to this section called Paragraph, look for a little arrow pointing up and down, and change this to 2.0. And you'll notice that this puts a blank space between each line. So you'll notice that there's like this blank space between each of the lines. So your spacing should be double spaced, 2.0. The font should be something easy to read like Times New Roman 0.12. So don't make your font size 4 or size 4 so you can barely read it. Don't make it size 64 so that it looks silly. Make it just size 12. And then you can choose something that's very easy to read like Times New Roman. You could also choose another font that's easy to see, but Times New Roman is a good font. If you do something like this Jane Austen font, it's just too hard to read. So do something basic and something easier to read like Times New Roman. Alright, next page number should be in the top right corner. And this is a little bit complicated, so I'm making this optional. If you can get the page numbers to work, that would be great. If you can't, don't worry about it. So the first thing you need to do is access the header section. And I do that by double-clicking up here. So I'm not really sure how to adjust this otherwise. Oh, maybe go to Insert. Yes, okay, so if that's not working for you, just double-clicking up here. You can also go to Insert and then head over to the header and footer section. We're looking for the page numbers. And we want to insert page numbers on the top of the page. And they should be on the right side. So not the left side, not the center, but the right side. And we just need a plain number. We don't need anything fancy. And you'll see that it puts page numbers here. So this is the first page. If we were to go on to the second page, notice how it automatically puts a 2 here. So that's a very helpful feature of Microsoft Word. So if you can get that to work, go ahead. And if you can't, then don't really stress about it. Alright, so we have the paper correct, margin, spacing, font, page numbers, and the next thing we need to talk about is the very first page. The very first page should have several things on it. First of all, your full name, so we know who wrote the paper, your teacher's full name, the class name, and the date. And the date is typed in kind of a funny way. We have the day first, then the month, and then the year. So it looks a little different. And then don't forget to give your essay a title. A lot of people forget a title. Give your essay a fun, creative, descriptive title, and you'll center that and make sure to capitalize important words. And you don't have to italicize it, underline it, make it bold or anything. Just type it in plain text. So let's go ahead and do all that. So here is the first page of our essay. We'll start by writing the student's full name. So let's pretend that I'm a student. I'll just type my name there. Then the name of your teacher, name of the class, and then the date. So that wasn't too hard. Just make sure you have all 4 elements. And then you can go ahead and center the text and give your essay an amazing title. Like I said, it doesn't have to be bold, italicized, underlined, or anything. It can just be in plain text. So I think that's about it for formatting. I guess the last thing would be to indent your paragraphs. So you don't want to start your paragraph way over here. You want to indent it, and the best way of doing that is just pushing the tab key, which indents it by ½ inch. And if that doesn't work, then you can just use the space bar. But that's a little bit more unreliable, so I would recommend just using the tab. Okay, well I think that's all the formatting we need to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump into our citations again. So now we're going to talk about full citations for a works cited page. So not the little bookmark pointing you to the full citation. This is the actual full citation that has all the information about where we got our information. So there's a lot of information we need to give when we are citing a web page. First of all, we need the author's last name, comma, first name. That's not too hard. The title of the web page, the name of the website, which is usually found at the very top of the page, and then the name of the organization. And the organization could be different than the name of the website. So let's just say, I'm making this up, let's just say that History.com has a separate website for the Titanic. So the name of that website might be The Amazing Titanic, but the name of the organization that pays for it and the name of the organization that runs that website is called History.com. So most of the time the name of the website will be found at the very top of the website, and the name of the organization will be found at the very bottom of the website. So that's just something to make note of. Sometimes they're different. You'll follow that with a comma, and then the day, month, year, so following that different pattern where we have the day first, then the month, then the year of publication. So this doesn't mean the day that you accessed the article. This means the day, month, and the year that this organization first published that web page. And you can usually find that at the beginning of the article or the end of the article. It might also say something about this page was last updated on such and such date, and you can also use that date. Next, we have the medium of publication. This just means, was this a printed resource or a web resource? Since this is a website, you'll just type WEB, and then lastly, you'll have the day, month, and year that you accessed that website. So if someone else is researching the same topic and they read over your works cited page and then they notice that they can't find the same website, they can look here and say, oh look, they accessed it 20 years ago or whatever. I bet that website doesn't exist anymore. So that just is helpful for your readers. So here's a sample. I started off with a last name, first name, just using myself as an example. Next, the title of the web page. Use the quotation marks around this. Then the name of the website, which is italicized. It's kind of hard to tell with this font, but that's italicized. And then next, the name of the organization, comma, the date that this page was published, the medium of publication, just web, and then the day, month, the year that I accessed this web page. Notice that each element of this citation ends with a period. We have a last name, first name, period, title of website, period, name of website, period, and so on. So that just kind of keeps each element organized. All right, so that is how you cite a website. And of course there will be some variations to this, but this is the basic format you want to follow. Let me try to cover very briefly some of the variations you might come into. Let's say that there was not a organization name. The name of organization was missing. Well, if that's missing, then you can just type N period P period. Let me type that up here. So just like this. And that just means no publisher. So if there wasn't an organization that you could find, just type NP. And let's say that there also wasn't a date that told you when this article was published. Then you can just type N.D. which means no date. So no publisher, no date. Those are some things that might help you if there is not a publisher or not a date. I think everything else you should be able to find. There should be a title of that web page, a name of website. If it's from the web, it's always web. And then you should know the day that you access the article. I suppose the only variation would be if there isn't an author named for that website, then you can just skip that part. So just take out the last name, first name part, and just start right in with the title of the web page. So I hope I just covered a very few variations, but hopefully the information is helpful. All right, now we also need to talk about how to cite a book. Most of your research will probably be online, but in case you have a really great book about the Titanic or about 9/11 and you want to quote something from there, this is how you would do it. So first of all, start with the last name, first name, just like with a web citation. Next, the name of the book, italicized, then the city of publication. If this was a very well-known city, then you can just type the name of the city itself. If it's a city that's not so well-known, you'll also want to put the state there. That's followed by a colon, and then the name of the publisher, the publisher that published the book, comma, the date that that book was published, and then the medium of publication, which will be print, since it is a printed resource. So here's an example. Last name, first name, Tanaka Amy. Name of the book, italicized, 20 Amazing Facts About Trees in the Western Washington State. Notice that every important word is capitalized. Prepositions, articles are not capitalized, but everything else is. Next, we have a city of publication. So this is all made up information. But Seattle is a fairly big city, so I guess I could have just typed Seattle. But just to show you what you would do if the city was not well known, you would just put a comma and then type the state abbreviation after that to tell everyone, oh, that's where that city is. I didn't even know where it was. So after that, type a colon, the name of the publisher. So if there was a publisher called Trees R Us, then a comma, the date that that book was published, and that's usually found on one of the first few pages. And then lastly, medium of publication, which would just be print. So that's the basic format you would use for books. Of course, there will be some variations, but we're not really going to cover that in today's lesson, except for this little note. Again, if you don't know the author of a book, sometimes there is a book written by an organization, so you could put the organization's name there instead of the person's last name and first name. If there is no author listed and no organization listed, then just skip that part and start right in with the title of the book. So that is how you would do a full citation. Now let's just go ahead and talk about how you would format a works cited page. As I mentioned, a works cited page is its own page, so you would start a new page after the end of your essay. So your essay maybe is 2 pages long and it goes halfway down the second page. Go ahead and start a new page so that you have a fresh page for your works cited page. Also, you'll need to give a title to your works cited page, and that is simply works cited. That's why it's called a works cited page. You'll type that in plain font and center it. So all you would do is type works cited and center that. Also remember that everything in general is capitalized except for articles, prepositions, and conjunctions. So besides more mechanical words like that, everything on a works cited page is generally capitalized. And lastly, you want to list those full citations alphabetically. So let me back up in my PowerPoint for a second. So in this full citation, notice how the first letter is a T. So that would go later in the alphabet. If I had a citation written by someone named Johnson, that you would put that citation before this citation because J comes before T. Oh, also notice if you can figure out how to do this, that's great. If you can't, that's understandable. Notice how the first line starts way over here, but the next lines, the lines following, are indented. So if you can figure out how to do that, that just makes it look more organized. So start a new page, list those full citations in alphabetical order, looking at the first word, whether that's an author, an organization, or if you didn't have an author or organization, you would just alphabetize everything by the title of the article. So that was a lot of information. I have made a little handout for you so that you can easily remember everything or help more easily remember everything. So you'll see little check boxes where you can see if you followed all the general formatting rules, got your first page set up correctly, and then for your essays this week you need to have 2 quotes. So each quote will need to have in-text citation and a full citation, whether you choose to cite from a website or for a book. I have both of those methods listed there. So I hope this handout helps you keep track of everything. Today your assignments are to watch this video, complete an optional pre-writing exercise if you find it helpful to free write before you start your actual essay, or to even give a little impromptu speech about your topic. Go ahead and do that. And then go ahead and write your 5-paragraph essay. This essay, as I just mentioned, should include 2 properly cited quotes as well as a properly formatted works cited page. Lastly, submit your progress report. So, in summary, MLA might seem really complicated, but if you think of it kind of like a game, it will make it more fun. You just have to master all these rules, remember all these variations, and I think you'll find that it actually can be a little bit fun. It sure makes your writing look more professional, and I don't know. I think it makes when you format everything correctly, it just makes your writing look a lot more impressive. So even though it's complicated, it can be fun if you practice it and master these skills. And lastly, just remember MLA is all about these details. There are so many details, and it's really important that you pay attention to even the small details. Okay, well, this wraps up Lesson 6 on MLA citation and formatting. I hope that it has been a helpful review and not incredibly overwhelming. Remember, you do have that handout to help you remember all these details.